tourism is broken, right? No, not at all. Sure, we've got some issues right now, but what if all those things that are worrying us are actually motivating and forcing us to change for the better? And the biggest shift of all isn't actually in the places where we're going, it's in the mindset that we're taking. Hi, I'm Justine, the nerdy half, and in my videos I look at travel from a current events, ethical, political, cultural kind of side of things. But that often means I'm getting the bad news. And it's not all bad news, because travel isn't collapsing under its own weight. It's slowly reshaping itself, evolving, and behind the scenes, quietly, some really positive shifts are starting to happen. So in today's video, I'm going to take you through my favorite 5 ways that travel is starting to rebalance itself. Starting with a somewhat surprising trend, dry tourism. Wellness in travel isn't new. Actually, it's a full circle comeback. Back in the old days, doctors prescribed taking the air as medical treatment. Right across Europe, there were seaside sanatoriums or mountain spas, helping the Victorians gain back their health. But then the 20th century swung hard the other way. Think raucous stag parties in Prague, or tequila-soaked girls' trips to Ibiza, or those all-inclusive booze cruises. But now the pendulum's swinging back, and not just through yoga retreats. The latest trend is dry tourism. Sober, hangover-free adventures. Dry tourism, travel designed without alcohol, is no longer just niche. It's hitting the mainstream. And it's a push from the younger generation. Research shows that younger adults are drinking less than they did 20 years ago. 72% less than just 2 decades ago. The global non-alcoholic beverage market is now valued at $1.8 trillion, but it's expected to reach $3.8 trillion by 2034. And it's not just soda and tea, there's a growing health drink market too. And of course, mixologists are in full swing, and there's quite a range of mocktails, something for everyone. You've got sober bars in New York, sober cruises, and there's even an alcohol-free wine tour you can do in Australia. It's turning travel into a way to be present rather than a way to escape. Because this trend isn't about deprivation, it's about being more present, having a clearer mind, having the energy to actually enjoy where you are. These are just a few examples of the 2026 dry tourism trend. Another trend is one we've been waiting for a while, the trend towards greater sustainability. For years, travel has been one of the biggest contributors to carbon emissions, but now the tourism industry is pushing for a greener future. And that's because travellers are prioritising it. 83% of travellers now prioritise sustainability when thinking about their travel options. And travel agents are helping streamline this process by making sure they're looking for sustainable options when they do their bookings in advance. Companies like Intrepid Travel and Natural Habitat Adventures are forerunners in this area. Booking.com have been keeping track of this over the past decade, and they've seen the shift in their customers, and so they're making sure they're rising to that. Travellers are using all sorts of little ways to make it known. They're turning off their aircon when they get to accommodation. They're thinking about reducing waste when they're out and about, and they're avoiding overcrowded destinations. In Europe in particular, rail travel has boomed. Travellers are ditching short-haul flights, and they're opting for rail instead. And that ends up cutting about 80% of the emissions. And then you've got apps like Klima, which will offset a trip for you. A round trip from London to Paris, if you offset that €10, you're looking at planting about 20 trees. These kinds of apps saw user rate grow 40% over 2025. And internet search engines have seen a 25% rise in searches for environmentally friendly travel. Consumers are holding companies accountable. They are looking specifically for eco-lodges or eco-tours that will actually have a positive impact on the environment. Eco-lodges have turned tourism revenue directly into conservation wins These resorts channel guest fees into reforestation, protecting rainforest tracts, and creating biological corridors. And it's not just through funding. Some guests can actually get their hands dirty and plant the trees themselves. The impact scales up nationally. We often think of sustainability as a limitation to our travel, but we could be turning it into an opportunity. When you make the right choices, meaningful travel can not just lower your impact, it can actually help you promote real change. But it's not just environmental impact we have to worry about. There's cultural shifts too. And I've made some videos around the danger of using culture as a performance. When Instagram starts to turn sacred rituals into selfies and traditional arts into tourist traps. But when you avoid the performative and look for the genuine, cultural tourism can actually be a lifeline. Things like local ownership, direct payment to the artisans can help traditions thrive. Bhutan has a high-value, low-volume policy, and it's a masterstroke. Tourists pay a sustainable development fee, and that funds everything from festivals to mask dances, and it all circles back into the community. And there are strict daily caps. There's no crowds allowed. The Tourism Council is quick to enforce. No mass buses, no watering down of tradition. Morocco's riads have taken it further with hands-on immersion. A €20 workshop can feed 150 million euros back into the Medina's restoration. The idea is for tourism to sustain culture, not dilute it. Check for certification like UNESCO's heritage guidelines. And basically you just want to ask yourself a quick question. When I buy this basket, when I attend this festival, am I consuming culture or helping to preserve it? And it might not be people's traditions that you're helping preserve. It might be people's jobs. Here's one trend that hasn't hit the headlines, but it's huge considering the world's current trajectory. Tourism is one of the fastest growing employment sectors. Travel and tourism is estimated to have contributed 14 million additional jobs in 2025. And we're not talking about faceless corporates, we're talking about family-owned guest houses, locals running food stalls at the markets, guides paddling kayaks through mangroves. Post-pandemic, tourism rebounded faster than retail or manufacturing in 70% of regions, and it was small businesses that led the move. And small businesses, those under 10 employees, capture about 80% of this. Tourism is labour intensive. If we keep it that way, watch last week's video about tech and tourism and you'll see what I mean about that. AI is creeping in, and at the moment studies show it will take about 10 to 15% of jobs in hospitality. That's until 2030 when they're estimating a big jump. And 2030 used to sound like the future. That's only 4 years away. But for now, every restaurant table needs a waiter to serve it, a chef to cook it, a farmer to provide the ingredients. So to hold on to human jobs for as long as we can, we as travellers need to prioritise making our bookings with humans, seeking local guides, using tech to amplify, not replace the locals around us that make travel so special. Every trip we make sends out an economic ripple. So if we do it thoughtfully, we're not just visiting, we're investing. And my final favourite trend means that investment is spreading wider than ever before. People are starting to move beyond the hotspots. For decades, tourism has funneled wealth into a few select locations. About 10% of destinations received 80% of the tourists. But now that's changing. Digital nomads and slow travellers are coming to the fore, and they're looking for quiet corners away from the crowds. There's a deliberate pivot away from mass tourism. And we all know the locals are going to be very happy about that. The new trend is to look for destination dupes, Zumba instead of Bali. Albania's Riviera instead of the Mediterranean coast, off-season and off-peak travel. And destination dupes are getting so popular now that airlines are actually adding direct flights to these underrated regions. Travellers gain a bit of space and some authenticity, while locals get year-round jobs. What I love about this is this redistribution isn't accidental. Travellers are seeing the power they have as consumers and they're making change happen. So tourism isn't broken and tourists aren't the bad guys. Travel has been challenged, but now it's being quietly corrected, quietly reshaped by the choices that we are making. Choices that promote sustainability, that preserve culture, that offer people jobs, and that helps us as travellers stay present in the moment. Travellers are starting to ask themselves, what's the ripple I'm creating? And they're making sure it's a positive one. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What other positive things have you noticed in the travel industry? Leave me a comment below. I'm not sure where I'll be heading to next time or what I'll be talking about. Whatever it is, I hope you'll be there with me. Until then, happy travels everyone.